The Taliban are stepping up their search for people who worked for NATO forces, the previous Afghan government and independent media. Militants searching for a DW journalist killed a family member. This even though the hardline Islamist group has tried to reassure Afghans since seizing power, promising there would be no revenge. But many fear the Taliban have changed little since their brutal rule in the 1990s, and thousands of people continue to crowd Kabul airport, desperate to flee the country.
An American soldier lifts a small baby over the wall and into Kabul airport, just one of many. But the striking images of children being helped over the barrier to safety are contrasted with others. Of soldiers using tear gas to disperse the overwhelming number of people trying to get into the airport. And onto one of the flights that international forces continue to operate out of the Afghanistan capital. American troops describe chaotic scenes.
I don't think people understand the chaos that is reigning right now in the capital, the brutality and the efficient lethality the Taliban are using right now to ensure their rise to power.
Sourcing and verifying information in Afghanistan is becoming increasingly tricky. Some Afghans in Kabul say the city is calm. The situation is better now. There's peace here. There's no firing, no war. People are happy. The reason being that the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan has come here and they've established peace. The Taliban have promised that there will be no revenge killings or violence towards its opponents. But according to an intelligence report provided to the United Nations, the Taliban have already begun going door to door looking for opponents. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres says he's willing to talk to the Taliban, but only when the time is right.
I'm ready to speak myself when it is clear with whom should I speak, for what purpose. Let's hope that there will be a way for an inclusive government in Afghanistan.
NATO foreign ministers are also set to discuss their future relations with the Taliban on Friday. The issue at the top of the agenda will likely be how they can calm the situation outside the airport and get as many people out of Afghanistan as quick as possible.
Let's cross straight over to Kabul, where reporter Franz Marty is standing by for us. Franz, what's the situation for Afghans trying to leave the country through Kabul airport now?
Today, a source in the airport told me that the situation is similar to yesterday, meaning that it is still quite chaotic. Nonetheless, some people get in, but a lot also remain stranded. This has several reasons. As your report mentions, there have been reports that the Taliban sometimes turn people away, meaning that people can't even reach the gates to the airport. On the other hand, there have also been examples that people are told to come to a certain gate to the airport, show up there, and then there is no one to process there, so they are not letting in despite doing everything as they were told. And another problem is that still some Afghans stream to the airport without being on lists or having the necessary paperwork, just in the vain hope that they are somehow getting a place on a plane, and they come there and clock the gates even more. Some people are getting in, but it is still chaotic.
We're getting reports, Franz, of Taliban fighters going door to door, hunting down opponents and journalists. A family member of one of DW's own journalists has been killed. You, of course, are a journalist. What are you hearing?
It is difficult to verify. There have been such reports since days, but if one follows these up, it's often it leads nowhere. Doesn't mean that it doesn't happen that Taliban went to some houses and killed some people. In fact, for security forces, this was well documented some weeks ago in Spin Boldak in the southern province of Kandahar. However, several of these reports seem also to be based on questionable information happen, meaning that either it didn't happen at all as reported, or not on the scale that it was reported. Again, this does not mean that it doesn't happen in certain cases, but so far I have no indication that this happens like all over the place in a really grand scale, that there are like mass arrests or mass executions.
Franz, thank you so much once again. Stay safe. Journalist Franz Marti there in Kabul. Well, many countries are preparing to take in refugees from Afghanistan. India is among them. There's an Afghan community in New Delhi made up of refugees from an earlier generation who fled the Taliban the last time 20 years ago. The Indian government is currently saying it welcomes refugees, but critics have questioned the selection criteria.
The first step into a new life after a difficult journey. They're the lucky ones who made it past the Taliban and arrived in Delhi.
People are very upset, they're shocked, they're scared. This morning the banks ran out of money, so there was obviously a lot of panic.
I can't believe the world abandoned Afghanistan. Our friends are going to get killed, they're going to kill us. Our women are not going to have any more rights. And that's all. I can talk another day.
Many more Afghans didn't make it. Look, it's an American plane. People even clung to the wings, and when the plane took off, some of them fell and died. Now that the Taliban have taken over the country, nobody wants to live there anymore. 26-year-old Jamshid could travel with his son to Delhi thanks to a medical visa. But the fear still haunts him, and he's worried about his relatives stuck in Kabul. His situation is similar to a lot of Afghan refugees who have been in India for a long time. This man hasn't heard from his wife ever since the Taliban took control. My problem is that my wife is stuck in Afghanistan over there, and I'm unable to do anything to get her out of there, as she does not have a passport. I have not been able to talk to her for the past 2 days. Many Afghan refugees are desperate to get their loved ones to India. The country itself says it would facilitate repatriation of those who wish to leave Afghanistan. At first, the external minister tweeted that Hindus and Sikhs would get priority attention. A day later, the Ministry of Home Affairs tweeted that it would introduce a new category of electronic visa called e-emergency X-Misc Visa to fast-track applications for entry into India, irrespective of religion. But in recent weeks, only a few refugees have arrived from Afghanistan. Most of them were members of the government or those having prior visas. As Afghan refugees in India, their future is also uncertain. Few receive citizenship. Most just get visas that they have to renew.